I'm gonna give you 5 tips on pouring epoxy in cold weather. So stay tuned and enjoy the video. So the tips we're gonna be talking about today are so that you guys get optimal results. Epoxy, when it was developed to be poured within a parameter. We go outside these parameters, we risk having optimal results. All right, so first of all, room temperature. We like to keep our shop at 72 or above. This really does help us to keep the epoxy a little more fluid. Our cure times are good, and we don't get as many bubbles. When we try to pour in an environment that's lower than 72, we often get slower cure times, more bubbles, and it just takes a lot longer for our epoxy to do what we're trying to get it to do. Before you start to mix, make sure you warm up your epoxy. I like to put ours in front of a small space heater. Now be sure that you don't turn the space heater on high and you don't get the epoxy too hot. If you get it too hot, you're gonna get some reactions and your epoxy is not gonna cure properly. So I like to do about 2 hours prior to pouring, we'll put the epoxy in front of the heater. Also, you can put it into a warm bath. If you do this, be really careful not to submerge the jugs all the way. You may have some leakage and water get into your jugs. One other tip, if you know you're gonna be pouring the next day, just bring your jugs, put them into the room temperature, and try to get them up around 71 to 72 degrees. When it's cold and you're using an electric drill, mix very slowly. If you mix fast, you'll entrain a lot of air, and because it's cold, the epoxy can't release those air bubbles as quickly. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys what happens if you mix too fast. All right, so as you can see, my epoxy's turned a very milky white. Now all that is air bubbles. All right, so you can tell that by whipping it really quickly, it's caused my epoxy to turn almost a white color. If this happens to you guys, don't worry. Once you pour it out onto your surface, you can torch and these bubbles will come out. You'll just have to torch more often than if you would have heated up the epoxy before you mixed it. Our epoxy's white because we have a lot of bubbles in it. So what I like to do to not put more bubbles is you can either trowel it. I like to use my hands, as you guys all know that. You can see I didn't tint the epoxy so you could really see these bubbles. Now I did not warm this epoxy up because I wanted to show you guys what happens if you pour when it's cold. All right, so you can see I have quite a few bubbles. If I come in and I chop, and I really agitate it, you can see that I'm adding more bubbles to the process. So what I like to do instead is just use my hand. The bubbles will start to clear out as I start to torch. I'll wait a couple of seconds and then I'll do it again. All right, you can see after a couple of torching, the bubbles have disappeared and you're ready to go to the next step. Keep the room temperature once you pour the epoxy at 72 degrees or higher for a minimum of 24 hours. This is going to help not compromise the curing process. If you allow it to get too cold over those 24 hours or within those 24 hours, what could happen, you can compromise the hardness of the epoxy. Even 6 months down the road, you'll notice it dents very easily. You can poke your fingernail in it. It just never really gets as hard as it would have gotten if you were poured in the optimal temperature. Okay guys, quick recap. Start with your room, 72 or above. Preheat your epoxy before you pour. Mix slowly so as not to entrain too many air bubbles. Pour and chop softly. Don't get too aggressive. Torch often. And then also keep your room at 72 degrees for at least 24 hours. I promise you, you're gonna have good results. Okay guys, do you like this sort of content? Quick tips and tricks? Let me know in the comments below. Also, you can find the products that we use on our website, RK3Designs.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We send out exclusive promo codes for discounts on products and classes to our followers. All right, guys, until next time, remember, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.